We are going to get into the details of what Donald Trump is up to, suing Attorney General Letitia James. Let's get into this lawsuit. This is ridiculous. So the lawsuit claims that James's war of intimidation and harassment on President Trump, his family, his business interests, and his associates is longstanding and continuing. James has repeatedly abused her position to pursue an unapologetic crusade against President Trump with the stated goal of destroying him personally, financially, and politically. Reporting from Raw Story, in a 41-page filing before the Florida State Circuit Court in Palm Beach County, the former president sought to shield his Florida State revocable trust from any investigation by the state of New York. The filing argued any investigation would violate his right to privacy and violate his rights as a grantor and beneficiary of Donald J. Trump revocable trust. The lawsuit went on to accuse the Attorney General of ethical misconduct by seeking restitution in her $250 million lawsuit against the Trump organization. In truth, James knows that no restitution is owed, but seeks only attention for herself and retribution against Donald Trump. That's a quote from Trump lawyer Timothy W. Weber. And the lawsuit would not apply to the Trump organization. Meanwhile, per Politico, Donald Trump's attorneys saw a direct appeal to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas because they know he shares a bed with someone that is their friend and political ally as their best hope of derailing Joe Biden's win in the 2020 presidential election, according to emails newly disclosed to congressional investigators. Trump attorney Keith Cheesebro, that's his real last name, wrote in a December 31st, 2020 email to Trump's legal team, quote, "We want to frame things so that Thomas could be the one to issue some sort of stay or other circuit justice opinion saying Georgia is in legitimate doubt." Cheesebro contended Thomas would be our only chance to get a favorable judicial opinion by January 6th, which might hold up the Georgia count in Congress. So they are up to a lot of nonsense, accusing the Attorney General of using her power to actually seek some justice and the many terrible things. There's a whole slew of them that Donald Trump has done in the state of New York. They're trying to get in the way of that and use their legal connections to help them out. Now they are trying to not only do that, but also save Donald Trump's behind when it comes to the January 6th involvement. And now there's new evidence that suggests Clarence Thomas was directly involved, which is something a lot of us suspected. More on Donald Trump and his shenanigans. Attorney John Eastman replied, "I think I agree with this, suggesting that a favorable move by Thomas or other justices would kick the Georgia legislature into gear to help overturn the election. These messages obtained by Politico were part of 8 emails Eastman sought to withhold from the January 6th committee," quote from Cheney and others at Politico, "but that a judge ordered be overturned anyway, describing them as evidence of likely crimes committed by Eastman and Trump. They were transmitted to the select committee by Eastman's attorneys last week, but remained largely under wraps until early Wednesday morning. Thomas is the justice assigned to handle emergency matters arriving out of Georgia and would have been the one to receive any urgent appeal of Trump's lawsuit to the Supreme Court, a fact that seemed to be part of the Trump's legal team's calculus." So now, over in Mar-A-Lago, the DOJ is mulling over an immunity deal for Trump ally Kash Patel. This is his photo, to secure his testimony about the allegedly declassified documents. So they've got their hands full, the Trump legal team. Patel was one of Trump's appointed representatives with the National Archives, so he could offer material insight into the nature of the documents and how Trump regarded the records. Reporting from The Guardian. The status of the documents has emerged as relevant to the criminal investigation surrounding Trump's mishandling of national security materials, since it could strengthen a potential case that the former president was in violation of state secrecy laws. Trump and advisors such as Patel have claimed repeatedly since the FBI search in August that the documents bearing classification markings found at the property had in fact been declassified before the former president departed the White House. The claims that the documents were declassified have not been supported by evidence, however. And Trump's lawyers have not repeated the assertions in a related legal dispute before a judge or in court filings where they could face penalties for lying. Justice Department officials are examining whether to allow federal prosecutors to seek an order from the chief US District Court judge in Washington, granting Patel limited use immunity to compel his testimony on the declassification issue and other matters, the sources said. So this is a move that we're pretty used to from the Trump campaign, where they tell Donald Trump one thing is happening. This happened with the 2020 election. They tell him all of these stories about fraud and how the election was stolen. But then when they get to a court of law, none of that evidence comes to light because it turns out they were just being yes men and lying. And when it's their butt on the line with the law, they tend to rescind all of those statements that they had said earlier. Jackson, what do you make of what the former president's up to these days?
Well, first, I cannot get cheese, bro, out of my mind. At first, he's like, what? But I just had to get that out. But I think the reality more and more as the weeks drag on is that Trump really is in no position to win a general election against a goldfish, against anybody. It's true that he's a celebrity within the Republican Party, but the reality is that the desire to defeat Democrats will become more and more pressing as their way isn't had. You can look at how they treat Donald Trump when he suggested that they get a vaccine, or how a lot of them are. Elon has been at the head of Twitter for but a day or two, and they already like, what? You're not going to let him back on? So these people are very fickle that we're dealing with, and the Republicans really are not in a great position. They're just not. The reversal of Roe v. Wade is extremely unpopular. Hundreds of them just voted against gay marriage. Hundreds of them just voted against access to contraception. And the reality is that progressives and just newer generations are getting more effective at just shutting their nonsense down. And so, Donald Trump is what? This is the 4,000th case of him acting like, oh, I'm totally innocent. There's nothing to see here. It's like, okay, so again, the Republican Party needs somebody else. So I'm really not too worried about him becoming president again, to tell you the truth. Could be wrong.
Sounds like he's got his hands full.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.